afternoon to the participants who have joined us for today's seminar. Also, good afternoon to our facilitator for today. My name is Gabriel Monyera, and I will be the moderator for today's seminar. So before I start, just by an expression of virtual thumb, kindly show me that you can hear me well, and you can also see these slides that have been shared with you. Right. Thank you so much for that. I would like to start by letting you know that this session is being recorded, and that the recording for this session, as well as the slides that are going to be presented by the facilitator for this seminar, will be shared with you on our Moodle communities, as well as on the RCDMS platform. Let me start by thanking you once again for taking time to join us for this seminar, and to the facilitator for taking time to prepare and agreeing to facilitate the session for today. But before I move on, let me state some housekeeping rules that will govern us as we go through the seminar. First, if you would like to ask any question during the presentation, you should feel free to raise your virtual thumb or your virtual hand. And if you cannot, then you can simply enter your question in the chat box, and I'll bring it to the attention of the facilitator. But this is also based on the preference of the facilitator, whether during the facilitator will want questions to be asked during the session, or at the end of the session during the question and answer segment. And like I've said before, the session is being recorded, and the presentation slides will be requested from the facilitator, and both the recording and the slides will be uploaded to our Moodle communities by the end of this week. So we usually just allow 2 to 3 working days so that we can check the suitability of the content for us to upload on the platforms. And also a feedback survey will be sent to you during the session in the chat box, and we ask you to please fill in this feedback form, as it will allow us to gain insight into how useful this seminar was, and also for us to be able to share some kind words with the facilitator. This is also the way that we are using currently for you to be able to get the certificate of attending this seminar. So with your information, your correct information, we can only get it from the feedback survey that you would have completed. So we kindly ask you to complete the feedback survey. So I will send it in 2 stages, at the beginning of this session and also at the end of the session. And I also want to remind you that we launched the Research Capacity Development Management System that we are gradually migrating to. So if you are not yet registered on RCDMS, please kindly register so that you can be able to access our workshops, our research writing consultations, and stay updated of all the events and services that we offer as the Research Capacity Development Unit. So you can all get that in one place. Hence, we label the RCDMS as a one-stop access for all our events and services. So for you to register, you can go to rcdms.uj.ac.za, or you can access it through the Moodle platform under the services, the ULink, under the UJ ULink, under the services tab. So with that, I would like to introduce our facilitator for the workshop, for the seminar for today, Prof. Sadi Siama. So I'll read the. Yes, Prof. Thank you. I'm happy to see you, and I'm happy to have you facilitating the seminar for today. I'll read your bio in your hearing, and please, just forgive us. We had to shorten the bio a little bit.
Oh yes, no, I understand.
Yes, yeah. So forgive us if we have left some other things that might be so important to you, but we tried to capture everything that we thought this is the most of the important things. So this is let me read the your bio in the hearing of all the participants. So Prof. Sadi Siama is an associate professor in education leadership and management at the University of Johannesburg, with a PhD in leadership and management and advanced training in critical leadership studies from the Lund University. Drawing on an African matriarchal identity and Black feminist pedagogue, she teaches organizational behavior through decolonial and anti-colonial lenses. Her research focuses on critical management, leadership, power dynamics, and social justice, exploring how leadership practices shape authentic, inclusive organizational cultures. She chairs the Faculty Transformation Committee. He has evaluated programs for the Council on Higher Education and leads quality assurance processes at the University of Johannesburg. A respected speaker and facilitator, she also pioneered critical personal branding seminars to support student identity development. Her awards include the University of Johannesburg's Community Engagement Award in 2013, the Emerald Best Paper Award in 2022, and the Gauteng Department of Education's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2025. Her scholarship centers on dethroning the empire by normalizing leadership rooted in blackness, spirituality, and transformative justice for national and global renewal. So you can just, it is a, let me say, Prof, that this is a very rich biography. It shows, the extensive work that you have been doing, within the field, and who could be the best maybe to talk about these issues of the topic for today, which is focusing on the youth month, So I'm really delighted, Prof, to hand over to you to lead us into the seminar, and we appreciate your time and your expertise, and we look forward to your valuable insights. And I hope I hand over to you, Prof. Siam.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a wonderful introduction. I really appreciate, colleagues, for inviting me to share my ideas, my perspective, because being here as well, you are giving me voice as well, and you are affirming that we need those voices because voice is power, and you are already demonstrating how you create space that enables that voice. And thank you very much for that, because it shows that you are walking the talk, not just talking. And thank you very much for all attendees for joining us. I truly appreciate that. And as I continue with the presentation, I don't mind that if there's some of the ideas, perspectives that I put on the table that we can unpack at them. We don't have to wait until the end of the presentation for us to engage, because that's how I look at it, a space where we are engaging together. And colleagues, please, if you can help me, if when I don't see a hand, if you can please give me note of that. Really appreciate that.
Yes, Prof. It is my task, as the moderator to monitor the chat box, as well as, anyone who would have raised hands to mute and unmute their mics as well. So I will do that, Prof, for you. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Colleagues, I'm someone who believes that for people to walk through the journey of a seminar or a talk that I do, or to make sense of the ideas and get a sense of, where my ideas are coming from and where I'm going, I do believe that it's important that I put who I am on the table, so that I give you the premise, the framework, through you make sense of what I'm trying to put on the table. So I I identify myself as an educator, that is professionally, and as a researcher as well. And in this journey of an educator, I've been at it for 25 years, and I've always seen myself as someone that is inspiring critical consciousness, in that I'm speaking to the freedom of a spirit first and foremost, before we talk about us having rights or the freedom of speech. But it's first the freedom of speech. And as I continue, you will get to understand why I, focus on the aspect of a spirit, which is the essence of us, of who we are. But further to that, it's about affirmation of us as a people, as human beings, and also affirmation of you as a human being, as an individual, with everything that you come with. And we will look at that when we talk about identity, the different dimensions of identity. And further to that, it's about critique. Critique, it's about being in a space of consciousness where you question power, we question dominant power in its all dimension, and be able to see how the ideologies works, being able to question the so-called things that are celebrated, that you always step back and say, let me take caution. What is it that is celebrated about this? Who is benefiting from this aspect that is being celebrated? And where does it place the human beings in terms of their subjectivity? Is it something that is enhancing the space of the freedom of the spirit, or is it shutting down? And secondly, it's about resistance. So when we are engaging in critique, and we identify that there are powers in operation that are undermining our freedoms, that are subjectifying us, then we need to have the tools to resist, because we can then not be able to engage with who we really are, and tapping into our inner voices, and that inner voice that is allowing us or giving us that unique creativity that we then express, then goes through with our voice, which then makes our voices powerful, because we can have voices, but if not, they are not powerful, they are meaningless. Also, I engage students on the ethics of care, ethics of self-care, that as a people, we live in a world that is full of contradictions. We live in a world that is constantly trying to influence who we are, and what we meant to be, what we meant to do. That in all of that, whatever decision that you make, it should be about, how is this right for me? How is it protecting what I consider to be the essence of me? How is continuing with the journey of my free spirit? When my spirit is free, it means that my thinking is free. It means that I am in the space of creativity. I can be innovative. And when I'm in that space as well, it means that I will give my voice power, and my voice will be meaningful and will change the world for a better world. Because, colleagues, at this point, we live in a world that is continually falling into the worst that it can ever be. So as a collective, these are the spaces that even when we, at whatever level, whatever discipline we engage, we all need to be mindful of that. I then also engage in the dialectics of life. And the dialectics of life, it's about, there are contradictions, there are tensions, but you don't necessarily have to take one standpoint to saying, I'm sticking with left, I'm sticking with right. Life, it's not about that. Life, it's about tap dancing between the left and the right. And again, it depends on what is the problem, what needs to be solved, what needs to be saved, and how that the decision you take, whether to the left or to the right, is influencing your creativity, is influencing your ability to express your creativity, is influencing your ability to shout out your voice. And yes, colleagues, as I said, that I prefer to declare who I am spirit, therefore I am. I can't be anything else. I think, therefore I am. I exist in the dialectics of spirit and thinking. As you can see, that was inspired by Descartes. I studied philosophy in my first year of 3 years. I studied as a major, and also I studied law, and it was, I didn't know about philosophy, but I was told that when you study law, your mind needs to be sharp, and philosophy will help you to do that. So I was introduced to existentialism and Descartes, and I got to love this notion of I think, therefore I am. I mean, like I was 17 years old. And for me, it gave me a space where I said to myself, I think, therefore I am. So I should not be scared of anything, even if I go to unknown territories. But because I can think, I can stand on my own. But let me tell you, then I had the consciousness reawakening, and I realized that, whoa, yes, thinking is valuable. Rationality, logic is valuable. But guess what? It is not everything. And I then also realized that, oh my goodness, what have I been selling? I think, therefore I am. Is that really what makes me a fully human? And when I look deeper into it, it shows that I was now fitting into the ideas of, European Enlightenment, where people were regarded as fully human because they are rational. And that means that it excluded a whole lot of people in that if you are not rational, engaging in the logics of science, then you are not fully human. Look what I was doing to myself. So with the awakening of critical consciousness, now I realized, no, it starts somewhere else. It first starts with the spirit, which is the essence of I am, which is like a Wikipedia, which is my encyclopedia to move into this world. Hence, today, I first start with I am spirit, therefore I am, and I still need to think, I think, therefore I am. And I exist within the dialectics of spirit and thinking. What is important about this, that it is also a framing that demonstrates how I am moving into the plurivessel world, the plurivessel world where we are opening ourselves to different paradigms, different epistemologies, different philosophies as well. So it's not a world that is closed into just the rationality, which then takes us to how I am tap dancing intentionally between the global south as well as the global north. Because sometimes when we talk about decolonization, people think it's about shutting down anything that is Western, but we say we need to bring other paradigms that are not there and pull them, get them into a pool, so that when we want to solve problems, we have richness of these multiple perspectives. Because in any case, we are multiple people. We live in a multiple world. And in our worldling together, we need to realize that all our knowledges, our cultures, our languages are very important, and we need to use them, especially in solving the complex problems that we are facing at this point. I can't move to the next slide, colleagues. All right. Yeah, here we are. So yes, youth voice, youth power, history, has attested, that young people have been fundamental for a very long time in leading the way in social change and transformation. And in Africa alone, we know that they were fundamental in the decolonization that, eventually happened. But this month, we specifically celebrating Youth Day because of the Soweto youth, and of course in the other parts of the country, including Langa as well, where they fought for Afrikaans not to be a language of instruction, because that is how now the stranglehold of apartheid was being tightened on South Africans, particularly youth. And they were able to protest because they were operating within a particular conscience. And if they didn't have that critical consciousness, it would have been normal. It would have been not questionable for now a language of instruction to be Afrikaans. And again, I will always emphasize the importance of critique, the importance of critical consciousness, because it makes us to step into the world much more cautious. And being much more cautious, it's about how is this thing enabling my freedom? How is this thing enabling my space to be who I am, to be unique in my way of thinking and doing things. So yes, indeed, we know that young people's voices, they bring authentic insights, and I think it's something that I will always appreciate. And I hope as young people, if you join, here, and when you work with young people, is that a voice of authenticity. They don't have a lot of burden. They don't carry a lot of assumptions. So they're still in the space of questioning things. So, and their insight, therefore, are real, and they bring fresh perspective. When we get older, we become set in a way of thinking. And because it has, we've taken it up to construct our identities. So it becomes very difficult to question perspectives. And you see that as you move through professionally, you want to hold on to ideas. You will do everything you can to protect very hardly as researchers or scholars. Just sit back and really say, I'm now questioning my line of scholarship. I'm questioning this thinking, this perspective that I put on the table. So yes, this again shows that youth voices will always require for generations to come, because they are fundamental in changing things. So the youth voice itself is a change agent, and their voices are imperative for shaping a better future, because in questioning things that don't work and in getting the world to move to a better place, it does say that the outlook of young people, it's for a better future. And in these times, it's a sad time for young people. It's a time where they are facing difficult struggles, and it doesn't look like these struggles are easing up. And this is where now we need to see the young voices rising, because this is their future. This is where they are now, and they're in a place where they don't know whether things are going to get better or not. But at this point, as a country where we're experiencing very high levels of unemployment, it is the space where we need youth voices, and a voice that is underpinned by critical consciousness. Because again, there can be a voice, but if it does not carry meaning for social change, for creating spaces, opportunities where as a country we can reduce the inequalities, where we can get rid of poverty, where we can reverse the damage on environment, where we can intentionally engage in sustainable development, then what is the point of that voice? Wara, nothing. And also, young people question norms, those things that we take for granted, what we say, that's how things are, that's how things should remain. You don't disturb what is working, but the question, is it really working? If it is working, who is it serving? How is it serving me? How is it enabling the freedom of my spirit? So yes, it is important to have as that voice, because then it gets us to have the new perspective, the different lenses. As it is, why are we still going down the drain of increasing inequalities and poverty? Surely there should be a different perspective in how things get to be, or things need to be done. Yes, we want young people to express their voices. And I've had the privilege to work with young people for the last 25 years. And it's not something that I dreamed about. I honestly did not know. I had no idea that I will be an educator. And actually engaged with the possibility. And I thought, I'm so impatient. There's absolutely no way I can be a teacher or an educator. But, starting the journey, how I got there, it's a long story. But starting the journey, it was a revelation for me of who really I am as a person who is patient, who actually loves working with young people, and importantly, in how I found, small and big spaces to inspire them. And that for the last 25 years, the students that I've worked with, they will tell you that I do give space for expression. And in giving that space of expression, it's when people tap into that unique place in the universe. I'll never shy away from talking about us as unique beings, that we have a specific higher purpose that we are meant to serve. And for us to serve that, it means that we're already carrying that unique voice, that unique, that is going to serve uniquely within the universe. And I believe that if we engage with people, whether as researchers, as teachers, as engineers, whatever discipline you are in, you should not take that for granted. And the problem is that when we are in spaces of oppression, of suppression, it is shutting down the tap of uniqueness, shuts down the tap of your uniqueness that you carry in your spirit. So therefore, you are not enabled to go into the world and serve it in that uniqueness that you ought to serve. And therefore, when we want to have youth voices that are powerful, we must always start from that premise that they are here to serve a unique purpose, and they have a unique talents, they have unique voices to do that. And the worst thing for us is when we shut that down. So as an educator, it's something that I've always been mindful of all the time. And the students that I work with will tell you, I go to class and say, there are questions, and let's ask the questions, and I won't be able to answer all of them. And even if you can't answer them, it is okay. And I don't want to know all the answers. It is impossible to know the all answers. It is a lot of burden. I don't want to carry that burden. It is unrealistic. So I try to be open and authentic in terms of my limitations. And I love that, because the moment I'm saying, colleagues, I'm here, I don't know it all, I'm opening myself to learning from young people in classrooms, in different sessions, seminars that I go into, and then we get into that space of co-creation of knowledge that are different experiences. When we pull them together, that's where we find space of creativity. That's where we find a space of a novelty or innovation. But imperative to this is that those lines that we have between, different generations, those lines are removed. The barriers between that we have between the different generations, are removed. And that's when we're able to move through the world, worlding together, understanding where our strengths lie, understanding where our shortcomings are, and supporting each other in closing those gaps. So an important question is, yes?
Yes, there's a question there. I don't know if you would like to take it now or we can
Yes, I'll
reserve
take it
for
now.
later.
I'll take it now.
The question reads, how can youth voice be genuinely transformative rather than tokenist?
The first point is you would have engaged in critical, in critique. It will be in questioning the power, understanding. So it means that whatever you put on the table, whether it will be transformative or not, it's about interrogating, engaging with the power. And also it's thinking deeper in terms of us understanding that we have those structures. We have those historical structures that are there. What you put on the table, is it able to shift? Or are you able to convince those who have the power to change those historical structures that are still causing marginalization? Can you change those who have power to use their power to create systems that are enabling? And I think this is something that gets us to talk about leadership, because at this point, everything that is happening is largely to leadership. Decisions are made by leadership. So it matters where the psyches of leaders are. It matters where their interests lie, because it's very easy for us to voice. And so we need to be strategic in terms of how we voice, and also the possibilities that are there in voicing. But at the same time, when we know that what the change that we want to happen, the structures are still very strong. But when we voice, we're starting to say, hey, we are watching what you're doing. You better start unbreaking. You better start realizing that we are coming. So it's not something that happens overnight. I mean, for example, if you look at the last 30 years of post-apartheid, it has been a difficult journey to ensure inclusive diversity. It really has. It has been a difficult journey to achieve the promises of democracy, the promises of freedom. For example, we are living in the times where there's increasing poverty, where there are increasing inequalities. And the question is like, what went wrong? What was the thinking like when we started this journey? Thank you. I hope that answers the question. How do you tap into your unique place in the universe? So we do need to know what is uniqueness, what shapes our perspective, and that is important because that leads to the attitudes that we develop, the emotions, and how we then behave and act, and also what drives our participation in the world, if we are participating at all, and if we are not participating, what is hindering our participation in the world. And further to that, you know, it's when we participate in the world, are we participating authentically or in tokenistic way, where we participate in our plastic selves, the non-authentic identities that sometimes we have to carry? So we will engage with that later on. So yes, I concur. I agree with the notion of positionality as that aspect that can assist us to tap into our uniqueness. As you know, that positionality, it is a lens, and it is informed by the totality of who you are, particularly the social and political context in which you live. Indeed, it is socially constructed, and therefore we'll always have questions. We always have to ask questions about positionality because it is socially and politically constructed. And again, it's about whose interests are they serving, whose interests are they not serving. And further to that, that is quite crucial in the discussion of, you know, people's voices, is that it influences your identity. So it leads to the construction of your particular identity, all identities that we then embrace. Then we own this identity. So when we start to own identity and say, this is who I am, this is how I identify, we have to ask, what has informed that construction of identity? And also just to note that it's a collective lens. Positionality is a collective lens of those different dimensions of race, ethnicity, your gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, your ability status, it's your age, your nationality, your citizenship, your sexuality, religious beliefs, your spirituality as well. And also in these times also about your immigration status as well. A country of origin matters in how we then get to construct our identities. And you will realize also at this point that as you move through different aspects of your life, your education, your profession, there are some aspects of your identity that shift a little bit, but there's always something that is almost like you retain. It's always there with you, even when you sort of have these shifts in your life. So when we embrace positionality, we are saying that we are thinking through our identity. Therefore, we do need to engage with identity. What is it, and how is it constructed, and how do we get to own these identities, and what causes the shift? And then, what is the value or the influence of identity that we embrace in us finding that expression, that creative expression in ourselves, that we allow it through our voices, that then makes our voices to be powerful. So yes, that positionality is the first point of our awareness of our uniqueness of thinking, of course, being informed by identity. And this has implications that if somehow we're buying into identities that's got nothing to do with the essence of who we are, then there's trouble, because it's starting to say your level of ability to develop that creativity and express it, and that comes out in this powerful voice, then it is at risk, it is questionable. We will talk about the authentic self and the plastic self as well. So who are you then? When we talk identity, it's fundamentally like who about you? Who are you? Who are you? So these are the questions that I get students to ask. We do this mostly when we engage with the personal brain, like who are you, and what are your comfort levels with who you are, how you got to knowing who you are and buying into who you are. So yeah, we do need to. Why do we ask the question? Why do you ask the question, colleagues? I just want us to look at that quotation from Beryl and Morgan. So this partly answers the question why ask the question of who you are. So they constructed the notion of radical humanist paradigm or critical radical humanist paradigm. It's a sociological organizational paradigm. And they note that the consciousness of man is dominated by the ideological superstructures with which he or she interacts. And then these drive a wedge, a cognitive, a mental wedge, mental divide between himself and his true consciousness, And this wedge is the wedge of alienation or false consciousness, which inhibits or prevents the true human fulfillment. Question then, does it make sense that we ask the question, who are you? When we get to understand that there are possibilities in this world, when we engage with the superstructures, the dominant power, that this cognitive edge can emanate, that we can be alienated from ourselves, that we end up operating in false consciousness. So when we operate in false consciousness, how then do we think that we can tap into that uniqueness of ourselves, which is fundamental, which is the foundation of our unique creativity and expression thereof, which then gives us voice. So yes, indeed, that means that we need to unpack who you are to get a sense of a way of protecting against alienation or false consciousness. Remember earlier when I said that I engage, with students also in ways that we can resist. So this is the point where that we do need to resist alienation and false consciousness, because as my perspective notes, it then shuts down the freedom of our spirit, it shuts down the inner voice, it shuts down that uniqueness of our thinking, uniqueness of our creativity and expression thereof. The risk is that when we are in that state of dominant power that leads us to this false consciousness, it means that we are rendered powerless. As you know, power makes things happen. When you don't have power, you are limited in what you can do. So you are left helpless, and in a world of high inequalities where we have majority of people who are struggling, living in poverty, that in terms of this world, in terms of what we need, it does render you helpless, particularly when you cannot afford the basics. And this is outside of the aspiration of us, and all young people exploring their full potential and being given the opportunity to flourish. We're talking at the basic level. And if as a country we have young people who are struggling with the basics, what are the chances of them to explore the potential? Remember, when they explore the potential, this is when now they are nudging ahead in starting to learn how to use this thinking capacity and allowing themselves to be creative and seeing and living creativity. So in the state of powerlessness, this oppression, there is lack of autonomy and lack of agency. Again, it's obvious. How can we be creative? How can young people be creative? There's no agency, no sense of freedom that, we can do sense of self-efficacy, but going beyond that and using that freedom to do something about it, to create change that is necessary to make this world a better place. So when we are powerless, it's about we are experiencing estrangement, that's this disconnection or dislocation from ourselves. So when we are outside, living outside of ourselves, and when we get to agree that what gets us to be who we are in terms of understanding our purpose, understanding our talents, and using them to be creative, it is inside of us. So when you live outside of that, what are the ramifications of creative expressions? What are the ramifications for a powerful voice? Yes, when you are in that state of false consciousness, surely, how are you going to understand your meaning? So you move through life without meaning. And when things don't have meaning, it means that there are implications for motivation. There are implications for people to be curious. And without curiosity, where do we get to creative expression? And I want us to go back. Yes.
Yes, there's another question that says, is false consciousness the same as internalized oppression?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, it's we are in internalized oppression because it's that state of lack of consciousness of our own suppression and accepting the wrong, what I call them, the wrong scotomas about us, those beliefs, but stereotypes that are there about us as either as an individual or as a group of people, and also accepting the inferiority when you buy into you say, I'm a smaller and a human being, and what can I do? I must just shut it. So again, can you see now how that false consciousness, of course, the false consciousness, most of the time, it operates at subjectification, where it is making people to accept their inferiority. And therefore, where is creative expression? Nada, zero. It cannot be there. And I think, colleagues, I'd like to point out that one of the things that got me to where I am now as somebody who embraces thinking, who enjoys thinking, who loves thinking, who flourish. When thinking, even when I'm stressed, it really helps me. That's why, when I try to uplift myself, I go read a very interesting article. I engage with interesting ideas. I only found this when as I continued with my studies, particularly after, as I was joining in my master's, but more so in my PhD. And at some point, it made me feel really, really sad. It made me sad because I did not know that I can think. And the fact that when I finished, my philosophy, I majored in it, and I was called by the head of department to saying, we see you have potential, and we are willing to give you an honor scholarship to continue with philosophy. As you know, there's like very few Black people who are philosophers, let alone Black women philosophers, and we will make sure that you even have a teacher. Do you know that I refused that because I was like, me, potential, I barely made it through philosophy. Absolutely not. So I truly believe that I could not think like a philosopher, that for me, the door is shut. And again, this is the injustice that you now feel it, you are experiencing it. But the unpacking of it, it had to take years. And I think we also need to understand that as we move into thinking differently about us and finding ourselves, as we go through the shifts of our identities, we also need to be we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves when we realize that 5 years ago, I was really operating in a very confined way. I was enabling my subjectification. At that time, you did not know. It's a journey. It's a journey to find your voice. And there are many voices inside of us, and as we move through the world, the voices also, they interconnect in different ways, so there'll always be that space. So yes, for a lot of us, I'm saying particularly my age group of older people who grew up in apartheid, we still have a lot of that internalized oppression. And I would also say that there's still a lot of trauma in that space, because to realize that injustice and that feeling that I didn't even realize this was injustice, and so again, it's confronting it and dealing with it and saying, with the little time that I have, I'm somebody who's lost time to explore my thinking, but I'm gonna do my best to really like push this thing that it's in me, and I'm not gonna give up on it, and I'm gonna move. So the concept of positionality also help us to understand why we need this unique voice, why we need to be aware, why we need to resist false consciousness, is that it recognizes people's perspectives. So different perspectives, we have different perceptions, therefore our realities are different, they are multiple, so there's different subjectivities, and also that means that our truths, we've got different truths, and these are dependent upon where they are positioned in society, and that's also something important that we need to question when things are, a position in society, in politics, in culture, etc., etc. It does require us, and it doesn't mean that we need to let go of things that are meaningful to us, even if they are informed by society or community, by culture. But it is just being in that space of knowing that that is it, and if you take it, it's okay, because then we can be philosophers, and we have these are never-ending questions, and we don't have that state of identity of being, of accepting and moving on in the world. So yes, positionality sees truth and reality as being relative and multifaceted, and that's where dominant power hits, because dominant power says, no, we need to get people doing things in a particular way, and that's a role of the ideologies. It's about how then we get to see the dominance of culture. We get to see the dominant of language as well. So truly, that means that we are not being realistic in recognizing, the multifacetedness of our identities, of our cultures, of realities as well. And again, if we push people into one single objective reality, what about our own reality that is supposed to serve meaningfully in this world? And I always say that, as a world, we are shortchanged. We're shortchanged so much, because for a whole lot of people in the world, particularly in the global south, there are many hindrances to quality education, the gender oppression that has been there, poverty, inequalities, etc. They have undermined the extent that as individuals and also as a collective, that we can develop, in the best way that we can develop, where we fully explore our potential, where we say we have opportunities to flourish. And for me is that as individuals, it's like each one of us, we are like pieces of a big puzzle. So as we move through the world, we're moving through the world, we get educated, we socialize in a particular way, we have these personal experiences, professional experiences. It's also how now this piece of a puzzle is being shaped properly, being shaped so that it can be the way it is, so that it can fit into its unique space in the bigger puzzle of the world. So can you imagine how many spaces are there in this bigger puzzle of the world? And the bigger puzzle of the world is the machine that will make the world to work well. So I say it as a joke that the world is a mess because, a whole lot of us, we never get the opportunity to shape ourselves in the way that we need to. So there's no way we're going to be fitting into that part of the world. So there'll always be something that is missing in the world. There'll always be problems in the world. Yes, in continuing to resist alienation or false consciousness, good people, is going back to the aspect of who you are and what is your lens, what is your identity, authentic self, it is what he said. It says it's true self. And I think it can be a very difficult question that what is your authentic identity? And for me, I'm still unpacking my authentic identity, that comes within, that is less influenced by the world in terms of how do I decide that I'm successful? What is the determinant of my success? When I have a job, I'm educated, I get paid well, I own a mansion, I own a car, blah, 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 blah. Outside of that, what is my true identity? What is my, authentic self? And for me, the authentic self it was getting to understand my purpose, why I'm in this world, and in being able to connect that, oh, this is why I am passionate about this. This is why I'm gifted in this way. This is why I make these choices. This is why I was able to decide to study this, move from here and go there. And embracing it as such. And authentic self as well. It is influenced by society, because my authentic self, I'm a Black African woman. That's my identity. I'm a woman. So that intersectionality of being Black and embracing Blackness and moving in this world in that manner, it is my authentic self. And as you can see, that I'm moving between what is inside, that is not informed by the world, but at the same time, it is what is shaped by what is outside. As we know that, yes, race is socially constructed, and it is fundamental to how we see ourselves. But as we moved, from colonization to, freedom, to post-apartheid, that's why now starting to remove the false consciousness, remove or being aware. It needs to start first with awareness. And for me, that the colonial lens has helped me to embrace my Blackness and openly love it, and openly unpack it, to see the beauty, to see the power that is in it, because that's the essence. That's what is in my spirit as an African person. And yet at the same time, I walk around with the plastic self. The plastic self is when we do or construct identities based on what the world tells us. I'm an academic. Our organization is a performing organization, so I don't need to embrace. I need to develop that neoliberal identity. And so the self as somebody that is engaging in the performance of achieving the strategic objectives of the university, and ensuring that we are pursuing digital transformation for social impact. I need to, because I'm in that space. So what is important is that if as I live and operate within these seemingly contradictory identities, how do I still able to go back and tap into the real authenticity of me that is deeper inside of me, that is that internal voice that is inside of me, that is the Wikipedia, the encyclopedia of who I really am, where as I take up the neoliberal identity, or the plastic self, or what the could be the social media, how do I not lose sight of that? How do I not lose that in all of us? The authenticity, the non-authenticity, how I still hold on to and working to what's serving the higher purpose that I'm meant to serve in this world. So positionality, it gets us to acknowledge that identity is fundamental to that. So my question to you is, are you affirming your identity? You are affirming it. You embracing it. Are you embracing your identity? You feel comfortable in standing, saying, this is who I am. And in doing that, have you found a place of of love and care and happiness and contentment in the identity that you embrace. And as I've just explained to you, and I'm mentioning myself because it's an example. This is how I got here. This is my experience of engaging and finding what I finally call, my authentic identity. I grew up. I had a white dog, with blonde hair. And we need to understand the subjectification was that the criteria of being beautiful, being a good person, of being intelligence was whiteness. So, as a young child, you playing with a doll, and we here as Black people, we are suffering, and then you go into town, you see this other life that these people are living. So yeah, you grow up. I grew up with aspirations to be white, but I can't remember if I prayed about I prayed about it. So can you imagine as well that how?
I'm sorry, Prof.
Yes.
There is another question in the chat box that says, can plasticity lead to loss of authentic voice? And there's also rather, I think, like a comment, marginalized learners' voices still excluded on curriculum design as well.
Yes, I'm sure even when you ask the question, you are thinking about that. It is true that, plasticity will lead to loss of authentic self. And that's why I say, we need to always be in that state of critical consciousness. Because sometimes, especially in a work environment, you can be, you align with the organization and you do so well. You do, and as you do well, you get celebrated. And it means that as you are doing so well in this persona, in the self of, of working, you are celebrated. Can you see how it's easy that it's a state that that is exciting? So it is easy to then really allow it to really this plastic self to take over, and where you then forget the authentic self. And I just like to mention that for me, the authentic self reminds me of values. It really reminds me of humanity. And this helps me because then as I engage in the plastic self, it's always about how is this affecting humanity? How is it? And this also helps me to understand how the plastics world in a world in the job environment, it leads to dehumanization of people, because now we superiorize the ideals of capitalism. And if you don't align with those ideals, it means that you're going to struggle. So we then, all of ourselves, we try so bad. We try our best. And sometimes also the structure, the systems within organization, they force you to align with, like, with every strategic objective, that you need to be excellent in it. That we end up being very instrumental in the way that we engage with ourselves, in the way that we engage with our students, our choices of research to do, our choices of topics. As you know now, strategy, we have strategy as an institution. Social impact. What does that mean? Yes, digital transformation, sustainability as well. So AI. And we know that these are the relevant topics. You are not going to struggle to get funding. You are not going to struggle to publish. So can we see now how that can bring a shift into the authentic selves and the purpose that you're supposed to serve? If say, for example, that fundamentally for me, it's my role, my purpose is to be an activist, and my activism is through my continuous exploration of, decoloniality. But now I can't do that. Yes, indeed, plastic selves can undermine the authentic self. And yes, the marginalization of a lot of voices, and it is something that should be far as a project of decolonizing the content that we use for our modules or subjects. We ought to be far in now see and more, epistemologies from the global South. We should be seeing theoretical frameworks, theories that are, emerging from the global South. Because if you look at 2015, 2016, with those protests, there was, a building of momentum. There was a creation of awareness. There were efforts. There were policies of decolonizing the curriculum, and it was a start. I mean, for a lot of us, it was a new territory, but somehow it was, oh, this is what has been troubling me, and it's finding now a place and learning about it. But I'm concerned that even most of the, you look at the topics on, alternative epistemologies, or you talk about Africanization of sustainability or decolonization, it's still the same story of, sustainability goals are not Africanized. Give us goals that are Africanized. What are we doing? What have we've been doing as academics and researchers in the last 10 years since student protests? Have we created something? Have we created even one theory? Have we created one framework, etc., etc.? So yeah, and this is where now we need young researchers like you to move, to really change the possibilities that are in there in the research, possibilities that are in there in epistemology. Because if we don't research and drive a research that will bring alternative epistemologies, then how are we going to have content that we need to be teaching in our classrooms or in our lecture halls? So again, if you look at what is prioritized, is it enabling that? To some extent, maybe, yeah, we can think, through the different questions. So in all of us, you have an identity, you're embracing it, you are affirming it, you will go into the world with it. Do you own your sense of being? Do you own your sense of being? When you're standing there, you're standing in fatness, you're standing rooted, and you know that that's it, I'm not going to be shaken up. Yeah, the wind will come and blow, but I'm not going to fall. Yeah, I will move left, but I'm not going to fall. You own your own space as a person, and you know that this is my voice, this is my perspective, and you express it even in the space where there's a different perspective. Because the other thing is that when you own your sense of being, when you own your space, your mode of thinking, your way of thinking, and your ideas, it means that you're not gonna move easily with new fabulous ideas that are coming through. Yeah, you will consider them, but you will consider them much more deeply. So it won't be easy for you to be, moving like a mercury, especially when it comes to ways of thinking. And again, this boils down to, do you trust your inherent uniqueness? Because for me, that's important. Until I got to know that voice inside of me, it is trustworthy, it is strength that is in me, it's something that takes me into the world in a different way, as unique as I am, then I wouldn't have been where I am. So it is important that you ask that. Do you trust that internal you, the essence of who you are? Because it is a voice. Remember, it is that encyclopedia is your Wikipedia in who you are and how you need to move in this world. I missed everything that is different. I missed everything that is contradictory. And I think one of the social media problems of social media is how it gets to expand ideas or lifestyle, and we end up taking up things. And we have, sometimes people struggle because they are othered, they are on the outside. So it means that when you want to own your voice and you want your voice to be powerful, it means that sometimes it's not about going with the crowd. It is standing there with that one voice and knowing and believing that I'm not going with that one. So when we live in the world that we want to conform, we want to be accepted, and we take up ideas that's got nothing to do with us. It's got absolutely nothing to do with the higher purpose. It's something that is very difficult, and we need to be aware of that. So as an educator, as a researcher, I do try to enable students a voice. I try it in various ways, and it's also a space of experimentation, of trying and getting feedback from students as well. And I've seen that several of the students that I work in with postgraduate studies, masters and PhD are in here as well. And we cannot, as people who, as educators, as teachers, whatever, as long as we are in that level of influence, we go into our lecture halls, into our classroom, into supervision spaces with our philosophy, and that's why we need to declare it. And as a person, I go into the classroom, into lecture hall, into supervision space with philosophy of Ubuntu, equitable humanity of all. It's something that is inherent with me. I grew up with it.
Prof.
In those articles of Ubuntu.
Sorry,
also,
Prof.
I come into my class with the postmodernist philosophy, which brings in the critical paradigm, the critique, the questioning of power, the dominant power that eventually shapes how we want to look, that shapes our culture. Yes, Prof.
Yes, there is a question rather in the chat session that says, can we say students' decolonization protest were as a result of plastic self?
I didn't get the question.
It says, can we say the students' decolonization protests were as a result of plastic self?
No. If I understand the question, that when students protested against the superiorization or continuing superiorization and dominant of Euro-Western epistemologies in the continent, when they were fighting for Rhodes must fall, it was not an due to or formed by plasticity. And and that is, again, this is where now we got to see the power in the voices of young people, because it was how many years after apartheid, when there was change of education, yet there was hardly any decolonization happening in institution. And I was there, the change, the move, the shift into terms how we were orientated in decolonization. And it's because it was an authentic voice. That voice truly showed its power, that those young people's voice showed power. And for me, it is also personally significant in the sense that if that did not happen, I would not have known that I am someone who has that purpose to engage in decoloniality, to construct alternative epistemologies. And at this point, I am enjoying being an academic. I'm enjoying being a scholar because I found that space. And I can't think of, if that did not happen, where would I have been? I would still be researching things that I don't even understand, that it's got nothing to do with who I am or where I need to be developing towards serving this higher purpose. I hope that makes sense. And if there are any thoughts around that, I'm open to that. We can have a discussion on that, because that was a fundamental moment in the history of post-apartheid South Africa. Again, young people. So yes, wherever we are, in classrooms, in our work environments, when we work with young people, we need to be mindful of enabling that voice. And I know, we get busy in our work. Sometimes we don't hear the voice, and we set in our ways of thinking. But remember, it comes naturally for them to see when logic is not lana kuna logic. There's no logic, something does not make sense. So they really help us. And students that I work with, they will tell you that sometimes I have given or research topics that came from the classroom, from an undergraduate classroom, because I go in there open to saying, I'm open to learn. You get me to shift from my old thinking that I understand it has shortcomings. So giving that voice in any setting of young people, it is valuable. And I have experienced that. So if you look at both philosophies, the Ubuntu as well as postmodernism, it is that for us to engage Ubuntu and be authentic in the way that we live Ubuntu, we always question power, because sometimes when we don't bring power into the space, we can actually serve Ubuntu in ways that are still very unequal. We still continue with inequality. And that hence I write about the notion of decolonizing humanity, because we can have Ubuntu, but we can have different levels of Ubuntu, hierarchization of Ubuntu. Hence, I argue about the fact that we do need to colonize humanity and be explicit that it's about equitable humanity of all, irrespective of the power hierarchies that we have. And it always baffles me. It always baffles me when people who have positions, when they walk in their organizations, they walk showing off, they walk power. When they talk power. And I'm thinking, what's the point? Is it really necessary? We know who you are. We know your position. So when a person makes an effort to show himself or herself that they're superior than others based on the position, how can we not have an equal Ubuntu? And we have seen this. This is what is happening. So sometimes, it's those realities, and I'm thinking, but this is basic wisdom. And then we then think that in the diversity of our institutions that we celebrate, that we will have equitable inclusivity. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Remember, leaders are the ones that write the culture, how things happen. And it's those positions that can break barriers to inclusion, systematic historical barriers that in some cases still very difficult to break them. So also, how do I continuing in the space of enabling the students to have voice, but not just a voice, but a powerful voice that is influenced by their true identities, their true selves, and the purpose that they ought to serve. So I do have aims when I go into lecture halls or classroom, or when I go into the supervision space. And one of them is that I inspire students to develop critical agency. And in critical agency, it's in two parts. It's the critique and critical thinking. Critical thinking, yeah, we can take it, we need it, it's rational, the logic of things. But when we don't bring in critique of power, it still follows through into the dominance of a particular knowledge. We can be critical thinkers, but critical thinkers within that colonial space. Also, it's about engagement with others, themselves as well. We also need to engage personal, professional life, through critique and critical thinking. It's about highlighting the awareness of how dominant power sort of normalizes the particular worldviews. And when you look deeper, you will see these worldviews, they serve particular interests. It is shaping paradigms, it is shaping epistemologies, shaping beliefs, values, and practices in the knowledge production. And that's where we need a big break in terms of saying, we need to produce knowledge in a different way, because if we don't, we are still going to produce knowledge that still fundamentally singular, still Euro-Western, and then there's no place for decolonization. Also, I encourage students to observe the world through a critical, cautious, and conscious lens. And in this way, it's about analyzing the underpinning, what are the foundations, what is lying underneath what is said to be working, the logics in which the world instrumentalization. Also analyzing the social, political, and economic ideologies as well as the rationalities. And it becomes a beautiful journey indeed. Also, when I try to, create or influence creative expression of students that I work with towards the construction of power of the voice, it's also to try to get them to identify the causes and the effects of the current realities and sort of find ways of resistance or mechanisms of doing things differently so that we can get to a place that is truly transformative, addressing social, economic, as well as epistemic injustice. Also stimulates thinking students as researchers and with possibility of contributing new alternative knowledges. And I try as much as I can to pull student into either a master's or PhD, but that space of something really like novelty. Even if it's a smaller way, we try with our student to say, oh, this is different, and we do that. I mean, a lot when I would use an unpopular theoretical framework to explore something that is a topic that is popularly researched. So already that it's starting to open a space of something creative from the students' work, even if it's at the honors or if it's a master's level. Also, it's to guide and support their future thinking of that resilience, of readiness, of flexibility as well, but most importantly of sustainability and creating positive life conditions for better human relations. When you look at the definition of future fit leadership, one of the most important thing is that it's also about moving a world into a fully equitably exclusive environment. And I know most of the time when we talk about future fitness, we talk about digital transformation, of course, including building resilience, because we are going to experience more crisis, more pandemics, adaptability, flexibility, etc., and forward thinking in that. But hardly do we ever think of the importance also of that equitable inclusiveness, because when we celebrate the notion of diversities, that we now have different people, they have different perspectives. So it's about bringing these together so that when we mix in the pot, what comes out, that is something different, it's something unique. So one of my students, did a research to show how, when an organization is not inclusive, it's very risky. It actually risks its resilience in the times where organizations need to be really, really resilient when they're looking into the future. Very interesting. And the study that the student did, it showed that the very sensitive aspects of inclusivity are hardly touched. For example, psychological safety. When you don't have psychological safety, how are you able to think clearly? How are you able to think critically to get to a space of creativeness, space of innovation? You are not feeling safe. You are stressed. You don't have a sense of belonging. How do you get to that? And for me, that takes us back to how we relate with students. We need to relate with students in human way. We should not be engaging with students like we are military generals, because what we do is to literally shut that voice that is inside. There's no way critical expression can happen if we are coming into supervision spaces, people of power, that I tell you what to do. It's a negotiated space. It's a deliberated space. And I'm finding a way to do that. And with my positionality, I'm truly reinforcing the coloniality of humanity, that equitable humanity, that, maybe I have a PhD and you have an honors, but it doesn't mean that I know more than you. There's certain aspects that you've got something to offer on the table. So I don't just give the student the topic and say, well, here's the topic, it aligns with my area of study, so you have to do it. So it's about recognizing, recognition of people's existence. People are seen. The worst thing that people do for themselves is when they don't see other people. It used to be the other way around, where you feel bad because you are not seen, you are being ignored. Right now, You ignore me, I don't care. You are actually showing how inhumane you are. And for me, when you are inhumane, it shows your lack of cognitive intelligence, not just emotional intelligence. Sense of equitable respect, sense of belonging. There's a place for you. The place is given, is recognized, it is respected, and the psychological safety. You don't feel like there's certain things that you can say, certain things you can't say. If you say them, you are going to get into trouble. Yeah, when we are in classrooms, when we in supervision space, it's about a space of interrogation. But if you feel like there's certain things that you can't ask, blah, blah, blah. And again, it then comes from us as educators, as supervisors, to create that safe that, don't worry, ask any question. You can ask anything. What are your thoughts? Because sometimes we live in a world where we're supposed to be perfect. We're supposed to be perfect in our thinking. So before you ask a question, it's like, I'm not sure, am I going to sound stupid? And then you're thinking, oh God, I don't know anything. I'm going to sound, and you shut it. And it could be that question that is opening up that space of novelty, a space of creative expression, which eventually become a powerful voice. Also, all are worthy of knowledge. There's diversity. Diversity does not mean division. It means that we are powerful in our collective thinking and agency. We work together in the classroom, we work together in a supervision space, and it's a space for interrogation, questioning power through critical thinking, questioning the normalized, taken for granted, how things are. What is good? In my research, when with the critical leadership within the critical leadership space, it's really interrogating the dark side of leadership. A lot of research is trying to find the best ways of leading, but look how messy the world is. So for me, I'm thinking, if we understand the dark side, then maybe we can try to start finding the good way of doing it. I still also don't understand why people are so not questioning and researching the dark side, the manifestations of the dark side of leadership. Very interesting there. And I think I've had situations depending on the frameworks that I use, people will really feel unsettled, uncomfortable as well. But we know this, the good side of leadership, there's the dark side of leadership. And some people say I'm political, but that's a reality. Unlimited questions. Even if we don't have all the answers, it is okay. For me, the worst thing is when we don't see or recognize that there is a question and we don't ask the question. I think for me, that's a danger, and there's a danger zone that's when we need to ask our subjectivity or subjectification. And also, I go into the spaces acknowledging that I don't know everything and I don't want to know everything, and it is impossible. And hence, I'm able to be vulnerable and open to my student when they ask a question and I don't know. When I say, well, I didn't think of it that way. That's an awesome question. I'm actually going to use it for research. Creative expression, it's again, we're going back to saying, yes, it's about thinking through your spirit. I'm building now onto the essence, onto what we might say. It's fundamentally what informs our authentic self, because it's a sense of your being. Again, when I talk about thinking through your spirit, it's saying that we don't learn, knowledge is not constructed in one way, in the science way. That voice inside of you, the spirit inside of you, is actually that space of knowledge, that you get to know things because of the voice that is inside of you. I'll give an example that in my choice of research for my PhD, I had already started with a topic. I actually completed that topic. I even presented it in my first seminar. But something said, no, that's not it. And somehow I was driven into critical leadership, and I was able to complete a proposal in 2 weeks. And where I am now, how I do things, flowing into decoloniality, it's because of the choice of the topic. And right down to even the topics that the papers, the topics for my papers, they come from inside. They come from inside. I'll give an example. I was at a conference and then I presented, and one of the colleagues after I presented said like, oh, how did you get that topic? From inside. It came from the spirit that inside. And I meant it. I truly, truly, truly meant it. And that's how I operate. And that's how I am someone who has gotten to understand that it's not first about the thinking, but it's about the spirit first. My intellectual development, my thinking got enhanced when I started to embrace the voice that is inside of me. And now I am comfortable in my thinking. I like thinking. I love thinking. It's not always easy. It's hard, but it's a space of enjoyment, of contentment for me. So it is tapping into the being of your essence. When you listen to that spirit inside, you think through that spirit and you tap into your unique voice. And this is something that is fundamental, because when we talk about creative expression, it's about innovative, novel uniqueness. And it's something that it's not there in the world. So where would we get there that is not in the world if it's not inside of us? And this is me trying to, get you to buy into this notion that truly, truly, when you think of it, the uniqueness, it first starts inside. But of course, when we now go into the space of scholarship, when we read, the more we read, so that you see that networking, the intertwinement of what starts from the inside and then into the inside, into the outside, and you bring that all together. Well, that's a technique that works for me, and I can't preach anything except that, because it really has worked for me. And then, yes, the draining into development of that powerful voice, it is a spiritual journey. Life itself, it's spiritual journey. We are first and foremost a spirit, and that is why I get very confused when there's the undermining of the spirit as fundamental to who we are. And for someone who experiences my ability to think better comes from the inner, it's very difficult for me to understand. As I said, your spirit is an encyclopedia. Everything about you, it provides us that intuitive knowledge, and this is where then we can then come with novel ideas. We can be creative and make our voices to be powerful. It's a deep awareness, that inspire original perspective and novel ideas. It's beyond the rational. Yeah, rationally, there's a flow to rational, but it gets to a point. But if it's something that is outside of it, yeah, we can only but be creative and have the power of the voice, young people. So it also gives a sense of purpose and alignment in what you're doing. It doesn't feel like you are just moving through this meaningless in what the sense of direction. And so people then get to be motivated, and then they to think and do things differently. And that's the point. When you get to start to want to think differently and do things differently, we are opening up the floods of creativity and the power of voice. Intentional presence. You are mindful in what you're doing. You're not just moving blindly like you are wearing ballad clovers. Also, there's openness and flexibility. There's no way that we can be innovative, creative, if we are not open and also flexible. Yes, I was surprised. I was in Lund University, and this well-renowned professor, one of us asked, what about this paper or this idea? And he says, oh, no, that was nonsense. I don't know what I was writing about. That probably was drinking too much red wine. So again, that's what intellectualism is all about. Moving with your ideas and then marinating on them. And sometimes okay, here I was lost and I need to accept I was lost. But because we live in the world that the sense of intellectualism or scholarship, it's built on years of and then owning ideas, and we then create identities around our scholarship, around the ideas. So it becomes very difficult to question them. And that is why then we have relationships that are very tight, that are very confining, where we tell people what they to do. This is my field, don't touch it. And look, I outside of the fact that, as researchers, supervisors, there needs to be alignment, because we need to be rated NRF. So with NRF, there needs to be a continuity of your story. So yeah, those are the contradictions that we live with in this world. Very interesting. So yeah, when you are in this place, it's about running your own race. For me, in creating those spaces, and it is me trying to saying people, young people, students can attain that creative, expression. If I am enabling them to run their race, enabling their autonomy, their agency as well, it means that it's them doing things their way at some level. And I've had wonderful work coming through. Students, for me, students select their topics that they are genuinely interested in. They are then guided through novel frameworks. So what I bring to the table, it's a framework, and it's really framework, of course, within, my field of specialization, and they are passionate. It's something that they, if a student is passionate about anything, be AI, be it classroom management, they passionate. So there's that personal connection. Buy-in is already there. So there's that sense of passion, there's curiosity, enthusiasm, and where's this curiosity, there's room for creativity. So when they are more free, have this freedom, it makes them to explore more of these unique perspectives. There are no boundaries in how students can move. So there are possibilities of unconventional ideas, and of course, more critical thinking is developed, and deeper learning, ownership of work. So people take responsibility, and there's confidence in it. And so living the work that goes into it, and academic writing, you can see that there is effort, and the journey is meaningful, and it aligns with the higher purpose. Because if people are working in a particular environment, there's a specific thing that they want to research in their own environment, there's alignment in all of that. It's not something that is really far away from them. So yes, I learn from my student, and it's exciting when my student realize that I'm learning from them, and they are really also shocked that they are indeed capable of thinking critically and being creative. And then we see more inspiration. Hence, most of the students, they want to move on. They've been excited by this journey of masters, and they want to move on and do their PhDs. And again, it's about being true to yourself and follow your heart. I know it's not always possible. And for me, with how I'm explaining, I'm hoping that you will start to reflect and see how in your environment, and you are now allowing for that space where people really follow their heart. Of course, not into the danger zone that will cause problems for an organization. Yes, it is our knowledge, the things we are so sure of, that makes the world go wrong and keeps us from seeing and learning. So we need to be critical in our thinking. We need to question ideas, things that we believe, or just the world's ideas, ideologies, especially things that we are told they are work. And that also gets us to the space that how are we engaging with AI? How are we engaging with AI? When you search AI, it's the wonderful things that AI is doing. And it really is. It's a change game of note. I mean, you look at health sciences, there's still going to be a lot that comes from AI. And then we look at the other side as well about if we use it in educational spaces in terms of its capability to do the work for us. Amazing. It is shocking. But what are the implications of that for us? For us as a people, when we say we have an inner voice that is unique, and then we have this other voice that is taking over, what are the implications of that for us? There's a research that came out, was done at MIT. It's not fully published, but because of the interesting outcomes that are in that research is how it shows that. So it was taking people through maybe a number of weeks, different activities, and it was, the way and allowed to use AI. They actually realized that as the weeks went on, people got lazier and lazier to think for themselves. They would just now copy and paste from AI, copy and paste from AI. So then how can then we develop critical thinking towards creativity if we are not working with our own minds? We are still not tapping into the inner voice, because the idea is that we work together with AI. AI is supposed to enhance our learning, complement it, but where is our space in it? Where is a space that is unique that we also need to have it there? But also from the brain, just from the brain, if we don't continue to build that networks, what's going to happen? What is going to happen to our brains? Therefore, nothing, zero, zilch. Yes, positionality, it's about the spirit of power, that is courage, to step into authentic reflexivity, questioning the assumptions that are there that we hold dear to ourselves, self-reflexivity. You do it for yourself, who you are, and you need to be critical. And that is important because we need to continuously challenge our assumptions. We want to move to creative expressions. We are moving in still unpacking what is not there, what is there, why is it there, how can we do it differently, examining our biases, considering multiple perspectives, embracing growth and change. And again, embracing the pluriversal world, the multiplicity of knowledges that are outside there. And with reflexibility, it really leads to stepping into the dialectics of your life as an educator or as a manager or as a leader, the tensions that are there, but at any point in time, weighing and thinking through, and most important in terms of how is this enabling or shutting down my spirit? How is this enabling my recognition of the equitable humanity or even pursuing the equitable humanity of others? A quote by Octavio notes that wisdom lies neither in fixity nor in change, but in the dialectics between the two. So we can't be fixated. We need to be flexible. I like what former President Mandela noted, that sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great, And we saw that with 1976. We saw with them in the 1960s as Umkhonto weSizwe. So you can be that great generation, let your greatness blossom, and you can be that great generation if we are enabling you for your creative expression, so that as a young voice, it is a powerful voice. That voice that you need to let be a meaningful voice that changes the world for the best. Why not? The world is at its worst. And tap dancing between the dialectics of life, the positives, the negatives, but you can do it creatively and still giving your voice power. And creating expression of voice of power, it means that, hey, sometimes you're going to be in trouble. So when the punches come, you just need to roll with your punches. Maybe we can learn a little bit of boxing so that when the missiles come, then you can still shift and you can still keep standing amidst all the missiles. And yes, my positionality, it's a sense of creative expression, a sense of power of voice, and this is who I am. I am spirit, therefore I am. I think, therefore I am, and I regard humanity of others, therefore I am. I belong, therefore I am, and I'm free, therefore I am. I am African. I exist. I am. I flourish in my purpose. Thank you so much. And this is the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prof, for a very, this was a wonderful, presentation. I think we have learned a lot of insights, over this, from the time when you began the session until this point in time. I'm asking myself so many questions, ranging from spirituality, to all these other facets. You have answered some of the questions that I was having just as a person. As you were presenting, I was continuously asking myself, so who is that true self? It's a question that I think many of us, we ask ourselves the same question, is that at one time there's a program that I was doing where it's a module that we're learning about ethics. That is for postgraduate diploma and research supervision. So we're learning about ethics. Then we're given a task where we looked at the documentary of Class Divided, the one that was done after the assassination of Martin Luther King, and then a grade one teacher then did that documentary where at the end of the if you watch that documentary, you can see that actually racism can be something that is taught to people.
Yes.
So then when we look at these world views, we have different world views. We have Christianity. I'm a Christian myself. I was born in a Christian family. My parents are Christian. So I was brought up as a Christian. Then you go to church, you try to interrogate, apply your mind on some biblical verses and so on, some things that maybe possibly they are not making sense for you. Then you want to question them. Then you are told, no, that you cannot question because for Christianity you must believe. And if you question, then you are not believing. Then you continue to ask yourself many questions that, okay, so but who is this true self? Is it who I am? Is it what I am taught to be? Prof, thank you so much. I think
absolutely
we'll hear a lot of deliberations as we go along. I'll open the floor for questions, and we call it an open discussion. So those who want to share their experiences, those who want to ask questions, those who have contributions that they want to make to the conversation that we have had with Prof. Sat, you are now welcome to do so. Thank you. I will open the mics of all the attendees. Then you just raise your virtual hand, and then we give you the floor to talk, or you can just type your question in the chat box.
I've seen two names, first Itumeleng and Stefan Govender Nicola.
Yeah, let me check their mics if they've been opened so that they are able to just unmute themselves and talk. Okay, I've
Yes, I think they can go ahead and speak.
Okay, it's okay. Yeah. Okay, so all the Lawrence, I hear some background from that side. Prof, I've allowed the mics of all the attendees, so they can just ask the questions in the order that they have cited.
All right. Thank you, Itumeleng. We can't hear you. Are you there?
Itumeleng, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. I see. I think the person. Okay, I can see some talking on Thokozani, but we don't hear anything from our side.
Yes, and also
good day, Prof. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, my question is actually on the chat, Prof.
Yes.
Okay, so let me go to the chat for you, Prof. The question is okay, difficulty. Okay, can you just assist at Itumeleng? Which one are you referring to?
Okay, my question is based on the South African context, given the fact that we come from historical injustices. So my question is, how can critical reflexivity assist me as a teacher to uncover my own biases and assumptions?
Yes. Remember, with critical self-reflexivity is really questioning your assumptions. And when we work, we are operating within the space of injustice. It will then help us to be more aware of the injustices that are there. And with that critical lens, you can see or get to understand the assumptions that you carry. I mean, for example, if you are in an education space, when say a learner walks through the class, what are you thinking about that learner? If say, for example, a learner has a difficulty, maybe they cannot submit, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Understanding that there was load shedding or there was problems at home, or is it you just thinking, these learners are lazy, they don't want to do their work. So it's really how then you respond to different situations, and that also helps to unpack the biases. And also what helps to unpack the biases is, if you were in that position, how would you respond, or how would you like to be addressed, or your issue to be addressed?
Good. Okay.
Thank you, Prof, for that. I see. Let me just go through the questions that are on the chat. So I'm thinking maybe the one that you have just responded to is the one that maybe you are saying it's difficult to maintain classroom discipline and create a space for learners to exercise critical agents at school level. Then there's another one that says, how can critical reflexivity assist me as a teacher to uncover my own biases and assumptions?
That's what I've just responded to.
Okay, so maybe the other one that was on top, it's more like a general comment though, in terms of classroom discipline. Okay, then we can move on, Prof, to Thokozani.
No, I'm the one who just asked that question.
So let's
thank you. Itumeleng, maybe we can move to Itumeleng.
Okay. Itumeleng, you can unmute yourself and talk.
So the mic is unmuted, but
yes,
we cannot hear her.
Yes, I can. I see that.
Nicole and Stefan.
Good afternoon, Prof. I'm not sure if I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible. Very clear. Thank you.
All right. So good afternoon, colleagues as well. So for me, I think I don't have any questions, but I just wanted to add, thank you, Prof, for this wonderful engagement. It was such an important one. And as your student, it actually helped me because it really literally aligns with my theoretical framework that I'm busy working on at the moment for my studies. So I also just want to say thank you for taking this opportunity to provide, the upcoming generation of academics and scholars with providing us with a voice to share, especially standing up to power and power asymmetries and, critically unpacking how to think and what to think and, why we think those things, looking at biases and all of that. So I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity. It is very much appreciated.
Thank you very much. You are one of the people that also inspired and, with the floodgates of saying, you can think and you've come up with, really brilliant ideas, and thank you.
Thank you, Prof.
Do you have any more questions?
I still see the end of Thokozani up.
I think it's a legacy hand.
Then there is a question from Bali that it's on the chat, Prof. It says, are you able to use your own personal context in research?
Yes, in Bali, you are able to use your own personal context. And again, this it depends on what you're talking about, personal context. Because if now I want to use the African matriarchy lens, which is something that I live, then I'm bringing my personal context into the research. So I use that as a lens. And also, if I go into, I choose a Black feminist a perspective as a theory when I'm researching something, that yes, I'm bringing my personal context. So personal context in terms of your work, your specific work environment, yes, because that means that you are now researching something that you want to get a novel solution to. And how are you in Bali?
Hey.
All right. Sorry, the participants, I can hear that there are others with mics
I
that
see.
are.
I don't know if it's Masha's hand is up. Yes, Masha.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. No, thank you, Prof. No, mine is to express, to say thank you to Prof for what you were sharing on. I mean, that was quite really insightful. I did disconnect for some time driving from work, but I did catch up again. So I wanted to really say thank you for sharing so much on, the youth finding their voice, because it is only when the youth find their voice that they can also help others to find their own, So I just wanted for being, for really being a trailblazer in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Okay, there's still Thokozani, Prof, but I don't know if maybe Thokozani is maybe
It's
some
a
technical
legacy
glitches.
hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then there's okay. Are you? Thank you, Prof. I'm well. Thank you. Okay, that was Bali. Was just
That was
commenting
Bali.
on
Thank
the,
you,
on the
Bali.
chat.
It's good to hear that you are well.
So, Prof, I don't see any other hands that are up, that are new hands, and I also don't see any more comments on the chat. So let me just maybe take this opportunity to say to the participants, I've posted again the feedback survey in the chat box for your access. Please complete this survey. This is the way that we make sure that you receive a certificate for attending this seminar. Our certificates are so nice, by the way. So I think it would be nice to also have it as part of your accolades that you once attended a seminar that was.
We live in the times of proof. There must be evidence.
Yes.
So
Yes, Prof. Yeah, yes, and we provide very nice certificates. So please kindly provide your information through the feedback survey, and also for us, those appreciations that you are saying to Prof, we would want to see them recorded, as proof that you once said that. So thank you so much for attending and for taking time, to be with us in the session. Also reminding you that we launched the Research Capacity Development Management System. Please kindly register on the system, because we will be migrating to that system soon. And, for you to be able to access the services that RCD offer, including these workshops, seminars, research writing consultations, mobile sit-tight sessions, you only access them through the Research Capacity Development Management System, or RCDMS. You can go on the rcdms.uj.za, the .ac.za on the website, or you can access it through ULink, the easier way. You just go to the under the services tab, you will see the RCDMS under there. You are able to register from there. And we also do regular workshops as well to register people on the system. So just look out for that as well, because we do send announcements, via our module communities. And with this said, Prof, I would want to thank you and, send our appreciations to you from the Research Capacity Development Unit. We thank you for continuing to support us and for you to avail yourself to facilitate the seminar for today. And we hope that we will continue engaging and, collaborating. You continue collaborating with us, in future. Yeah, and with that said, any words that you would want to leave us with before we conclude the session?
Yes, colleagues, I'm truly grateful for giving me this opportunity. As you can see, I just love talking these things through. And again, as I said earlier, you are exemplifying, what spaces should be like for, enabling that creative expression. And I'm grateful for the support that you are giving the postgraduate students. I know a lot of the students that I work with, they're really, really finding, across the board, the different seminars that you have worthy. And indeed, we live in a world that is getting worse. It is heartbreaking. And may we position ourselves as people that will make this world a better place, that even the next person to just throw Ubuntu towards them. And let us be kind to one another. We are all in different ways facing difficulties in our lives. So the least that we can do is the people that are around us, that we just give kindness. Thank you so much, and all the best. Take care.
Thank you so much, Prof, and to the participants, the session resources, that is the recording and the slides that we will ask from Prof. If she shares the slides with us, we'll be able to upload that on our Moodle communities, and also the recording for this session. And allow me to stop the recording and wish you a great day further. Thank you so much.
Thank you, colleagues. Have a lovely evening, and we'll meet once again. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, bro.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Thank you.